I remember coming down from the vineyards one day, my dad and I were driving down the hill here. We kind of, I don't know, the conversation got into sort of making wine. You know, we knew we had these great grapes, but are we ever going to make wine one day? And we both looked at each other and said, nah, it's not going to happen. And it was actually just like, you know, literally the next year we were doing it.
And we were chuffed, so chuffed to be able to open the first bottle of our 1999 Sauvignon Blanc. That wine that you rolled over your tongue was the sweetest wine that I will ever know. My past life has been in dairy, and my present life now is being in wine. The dairy actually was started by my grandfather, and in 1973 we purchased Groote Post. It had even better soils than Turkey, and it was a cool climate area. Because of that reason, we started to plant grapes. Planting vineyards takes about 4 years to produce wine, so we had time to plan our cellar, and I said, let's put it in the fort. The old shed that we got on our farm was previously a fort. Because you think about Groote Post. Groote Post was an outpost of the Dutch East India Company, and over times, I believe it was in 1950s, the previous owner of the farm stripped the fort of all its yellowwood, and we decided that is where our cellar is going to be. We were lucky to find in the archives photographs taken by Arthur Elliott, the last century, of the old fort. So we were able to replicate the new roof, which is of course thatch, to be identical to the original fort.
Thinking of those days when we started, there's photos of the first tanks arriving. Lucas has been making our wines now for 19 years, but in the first year, old Arie Badenhorst was our first winemaker. So there are photos of him here, him and my daughter, myself, with the tanks lying outside the cellar. They hadn't even been put in place yet. It's amazing the cost of barrels. So those first barrels arriving, it felt like diamonds that you were offloading off the truck, you know. They were instrumental in forming our first wines. I mean, looking through here, I mean, there's some of our farm men here that are still with us today. It's actually, you know, actually amazing to see that. Jannie de Klerk has been our viticulturist since we started out. He's a second generation on the farm. And him and his wife Vilna have a huge passion for our wine business, and their dedication to detail is truly unrivaled. You know, the first grapes that came in were Sauvignon Blanc, and I mean, Sauvignon's got the most amazing flavors. I mean, you taste it in the grapes in the vineyards. When it goes over the sorting table and then through the stemmer crusher, you immediately smell that. You get those wonderful mixture of green grass, green fig. You smell the wine immediately, and I think it was those first aromas that sort of told me, yeah, we're onto something here. So the wine didn't even have to be in bottle yet, and it was already singing the right tunes.
When it comes to making wine or growing grapes, it's very important where the grapes come from, and you will generally find that your better quality grapes come from more Mediterranean kind of conditions. Your climate tends, when it comes to making white wine and red wine, you need a little bit more of a maritime condition. And so when you talk about climate, it's also the terroir that they talk about, everything, where it comes and how far it's from the ocean. I mean, if you take Groote Post, for instance, we are very close to the ocean. One of the few vineyards in South Africa where you can actually see the waves breaking when you stand in the vineyards, which is so vital in a dryland condition area. And that is, for me, essential when you make a decision to plant grapes, is to make sure that you've got that maritime, Mediterranean kind of climate. And when you make the right decision where to plant it, you will end up making wines of good quality and the style that you want to make it in.
You know, dairy had been sort of part of our blood for generations. Especially for my dad, you know, his whole life he had been, dairy was his blood. I mean, he had been instrumental in importing cattle semen from America. He bred the most beautiful cow in South Africa. He bred the highest producing cow in South Africa as far as milk production was concerned. So he'd reached all these sort of pinnacles of the dairy industry. I mean, he was Farmer of the Year, 98 National Farmer of the Year, so for his dairy farming. I think at the end of the day we had to make a decision. We were going to go with wine, we were going to go with milk. And just something that my dad always tells, you know, a little story that he always says that, you know, in his 50 years of dairy farming, nobody's ever come up to him in the street and said, "Peter, last night I had a really, really great bottle of your milk." And in the wine industry, it's often that way. You know, people, it's an amazing product, gives you a lot of satisfaction, and telling this wonderful story from this great place we had. You know, standing up in the vineyards, you're looking down on the icy cold Atlantic. We've got the game camp where we've got 8 different types of antelope. We do a little cheese and wine in the vineyards, and then the guys come down and they can do a tasting. And, you know, 5 days a week we do lunch through Hilda's Kitchen. So Sean and Debbie have been running Hilda's Kitchen since 2001. And Debbie's a great, great chef, fresh ingredients, small menu, just wonderful, wonderful food. And such a delight to have that great food paired with our wines, you know what I mean? So you can sit in this wonderful sort of 18th century manor house and, you know, have a wonderful meal with, you know, Groote Post wines, and it's just a really, truly good experience. And then the other attraction which we have as well, of course, is the country market, which we have at the end of the month. So that draws, we have many, many people coming out for that. We have about 50, 60 stalls, different crafts, beer, of course our wine, and you know, lots of different foods and so on.
Yes.
You know, marketing and sales, and that it's not about, you can't list like 10 factors that make it work or don't make it work. It's about the hundreds of things or thousands of things that you and your staff do every day, day after day, year in, year out, month in, month out. You know, that translates into better flavors, it translates into the wines at the end of the day.
Marketing the wine is the biggest job in this farm. And if I had never had Nicholas doing it, it wouldn't be done. You know, I'd be selling bulk wine, or he'd be selling bulk wine. It's not easy. It really isn't easy. I'm lucky to have Nicholas to do that.